these kind of discussions, but nevertheless, good to know.
Yeah, we are live now on YouTube. So welcome everybody to live interactions with the global change makers. Today we have with us one of the 50 most talented CSR professionals in India.
Kind of discussions, but nevertheless, good to know.
Yeah, we are live now on YouTube.
There's some technical error, I believe.
She has been in the space of CSR and sustainability since more than 2 decades. She has worked in different companies and started from very humble background. From Jamia Millia Islamia to being the head of CSR for the Indian subcontinent of Philips India Limited. We have with us Ms. Sakina Baker. Welcome to you on the show.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
So Sakina, what has been your journey been from bachelor's in foreign trade to heading CSR of Philips India from the Indian subcontinent? So what has been your journey throughout?
I sometimes sit and really think about it myself. So hi to everyone, whosoever is here at listening to this conversation. But it's really surprising to see that a person who started thinking that her career may be somewhere in foreign trade, looking at exports and imports, ends up being in the social sector and social space. But I think I'm grateful for the opportunities that I got throughout, whether it was from the day I joined my foreign trade class to today, what I am, and looking at the CSR space and how it has evolved over the years, in India at least. Obviously, foreign trade was one of my main subjects, and I was really very much into it, thinking of pursuing higher studies in it. But sociology was one of my optional subjects, and I was very much interested in it. I used to have endless conversations about it with my professor, considering I was from a science background and really never had such a deep understanding of society and such a deep understanding of social development. That was the time when my focus changed from foreign trade into doing something in sociology. Maybe not with the intent of doing some change, bringing in some change in the society or something, but maybe something to do with what is it that I have that I can maybe give back to the society. I've been blessed with a maybe privileged life. I've had everything that my parents could provide for me. And is there something that my experience, my skills, my education give it back to the society? I think it was that thought that I started. Of course, I finished my graduation in foreign trade, but I continued my master's in extension education, which was in fact a little more than what you teach in social work. It taught you statistics, it taught you human resources, it taught you research, it taught you community development, which was an eye opener for me. It really pulled me into the sector from a different perspective, from a perspective of looking and understanding the social issues that you have, looking at why we have such issues and what can be done towards it. And that's why the reason I think people like me who pursue social work and who pursue social development as a part of their career would be feeling, and that's why they are part of this field. But gradually, while I started my career, I was campus recruited into into Rajiv Gandhi Foundation. So it was a very good opportunity at that time to get inducted into it, and it brought me into. It was a little bit of shock for me because I was very sheltered in college as well, in masters as well. I was a very sheltered girl that time. But when I joined my first job, my first assignment was extremely scary because I got an assignment to counsel commercial sex workers on HIV/AIDS, and it was like, oh God, what am I going to do? How am I going to do? If my parents get to know about it, what will they think? That you are going to a red light area and you're trying to counsel commercial sex workers. Initial few weeks was it took me some time to get hold of myself in terms of I'm a professional and I need to do it because I have the expertise to do it. And gradually I started working on those issues. I started interacting with people. I started talking to them. I started understanding them as human beings, not just someone who has been actually sidelines or sidelined, or somebody who had been actually not made a part of the society. They have their own issues. Could understand that by being very close to them. And this was my journey, which was the start of my journey into the social sector. I think it really helped me into shaping what I am today. I started working from that HIV AIDS project. I started working into disability sector. I worked in education, healthcare, skill development, and every single topic I worked, every single organization I worked for, or every mentor that I reported to has helped me evolve into a person that I am, and maybe have a lot more deeper understanding of CSR, not giving back, which is the fancy term normally used. It's as a new profession, which is very much to be pursued as professionally as any other corporate job that you have in the country. And I think that was a turning point in my life, and it gradually took me from the voluntary sector, wherever I hold on a particular subject at a particular time, into the corporate sector, which gave me an avenue to maybe influence a lot of other areas, do what I think was required at the time in the sector, whether from a corporate sector perspective of getting how they can get involved in the social development space, or the NGO sector, which could actually gain from the experience and expertise of corporate sector. So it's been nice journey so far.
You have it's pretty interesting because working in that space where you did at early age, I'm sure your parents were pretty special and you handle it really well.
Well,
You
they
have
don't know
worked
even
as a
till now. So they don't know. I started my career like that. So I'm not sure if they're watching it, but I'm not sure. And I hope they don't know about it, but they don't know about it. So I haven't told them.
but it's very commendable. So at that age, thinking to work in that space. Now, you have worked as a CSR consultant and counselor in the healthcare sector. Understanding the present COVID-19 scenario, what initiatives do you suggest that the government and the corporates should take up to mitigate the upcoming risks and challenges that we are already facing with the rising numbers?
Well, I don't think it's only the government and the corporate's job to do it. It is everybody is in it. COVID-19 was not what only hit the corporates or the government. It hit everyone. And I think it was kind of a wake up call for everyone, even for the NGOs who came up front to support. And I think there was majority of the NGOs of what they were doing on the ground. I am a part of many groups, and they were talking about it. How can we reach out to people? How can we support them despite being amidst of the heavy lockdown? I think from perspective of when you're looking at only the two sectors of the corporate and government, there's no other way than collaboration. I've been talking about collaborative efforts since now past few years, because I don't see, even if you make CSR as a regulation, you cannot expect corporates to change life or change things by just spending money. It has to be a collective effort. If the corporates are making solutions, if they're making innovations for you, the government has to be responsible for scale up. The government has to be able to be coming up and appreciating the efforts that the corporates are doing. And I think a lot of corporates are doing. I don't think they are even dependent on that 2% of CSR money that you need to spend on social development issues. A lot of corporates were already doing earlier. They didn't need a law to do it or to formalize it. I agree. There are a lot of it has become a part of the business discussions. The CSR is not no longer a okay, fine, chalta hai, good to do type of a stuff, but it has become a part of the discussions in the business scenario. It has become a part of where you see where is the shared value that you see in CSR that your company is doing, or the core competency that you have that you can bring into your social development initiative from the business perspective. How can you build in capacities of your people on ground, whether it is in the government setup, last mile people, or it's people within the NGO sector. It has to be a collaborative effort. It has to be an effort where the government appreciates what the corporate does, and corporate does in association with the government in reaching out to the last mile. That's the only way I think it's going to be way forward for us. We can't work on silos. Definitely not.
As you rightly mentioned that we can't be working in silos, what since you all have worked with on many projects with government as well as with peer group members, what are those projects which are close to your heart, and what have been learning in working with different stakeholders in terms of maybe communication challenges or engagement challenges?
Well, I don't say there has been all the projects have had been a cakewalk. I won't say that, because when you are getting in a social development space, there are a lot of challenges that you face, because the audience that you're going to address is unknown to you. You don't know what their reaction is going to be in terms of your intervention to this space. You don't trust initiatives for them, you make initiatives with them. That is what the motto should be, and it has always been our motto. We make sure that we sit with the community, look at their needs, and then make things and initiatives for them. We don't go and force our initiatives on them. Okay, fine, I think you need this kind of support, we are giving you this kind of support, and click few pictures, and that's our CSR. I don't think that that works. What works is in terms of the projects that you normally do. If you do service delivery projects, you do awareness related projects, you do advocacy based projects, but is there a connection with all of them that you're trying to do? Is it, or it's just money that you want to spend? Are you looking at the impact that you want to create, and basis that you devise your projects? We have had many experiences. In fact, I can just say that a couple of projects that I think, or the initiatives that I worked on, I worked in disability sector. I had zero knowledge of disability. Maybe I've never have noticed a person with disability going around, or maybe passing by. When I started working in the disability sector, it was an eye opener for me, because I realized that it is not a physical disability that limits a person. It's the disability of the mind. When we start taking them as an invisible minority, and those 2.5 years in the disability sector, it was an amazing journey. When we talked about the rights of people with disabilities, and you looked at their accessibility, you looked at how inaccessible our country is, what can be done to make sure that we have those. You looked at education systems that are how accessible they are for these people, and the small children that you see every day. It wasn't there earlier till actually it hit me on my face, and I was becoming a part of it. I'm very much, I think even now I'm very much sensitive to that particular subject. And I think that was the time when I had an amazing learning experience. It was not a service delivery project that I was doing. We were doing advocacy. We were talking about the rights of people with disabilities. And I think that's stayed with me, and that has taught me a lot in terms of how I function now. What I learned there is stayed with me till now. I've seen all the types of it, that it is not only the things that you do, it's what are the stakeholders that you get along, what are the things that you add to it, how communication become a part of this whole process, how networking is a part of this whole process, how advocacy becomes a part of process where you actually need to change things. And another project was very recently on the childhood CSR campaign on childhood pneumonia that we did with Philips. Amazing year of preparation, putting it on ground, making sure that we have the right communication for that last mile population, at least the high incident states. We did a research before and after the campaign. We focused on symptoms. We focused on symptoms that can be identified by the first responders, like mothers and grandmothers, or if the child is having pneumonia. And we did a research before, assessment kind of a thing, before this we started this campaign. Only 2% of the respondents were aware of how to identify pneumonia. After the campaign, 2% went up to 18. And it was an amazing feedback for us to see how a lot of things, even a simple communication of teaching people, can change their life and make them responsible of taking care of their own health, making them not end up into somebody else's hands in terms of their health care. Basic healthcare is very important. And I think what I feel is that you need to equip people with the right knowledge, information, and skill, rather than just trust services on them. Free is not always good for the society. And I think you need to add a value and make sure that they become responsible for what you are trying to do for them. And these have been really good learnings for me. There are many, but these are the offhand learnings that I can just share right now.
Highly appreciated. I would like to acknowledge who's present with us, Mr. Ramesh Daswani, Mr. Vijay Kamble. Thank you for joining us. Moving to our next question. Since you have already engaged with many NGOs on the ground as well, what are the criteria that you look at them when you all engage with a not-for-profit organization and also with governments? What kind of PPP projects have you all rolled out?
See, with non-profits, every project is different. So, if there are non-profit organizations, we try to work with big, small, medium-sized organizations. It's not a criteria that we work on with big names only. It depends on what is the kind of project that we have. We sit across the table. For us, it's very important to co-create. So when we are sitting with the non-profit organization or any entity that we want to work with, it's always a co-creation process that happens. That what we want to work on, what is the impact going to be, how is it going to be, where is the location, what are the areas, and the most important is how impactfully that organization is able to present it in terms of getting into the details, not giving us a very high-end view of the project. So this is normally with every organization, doesn't matter if it's a small or a big project, we normally have these kind of discussions with all our NGO partners or potential NGO partners. With the government, we have not really, from in the current setup, we have not had a PPP kind of a thing, but we have an understanding with the government in most of our projects where they are equally involved, because we try to do all our projects with their information, with them being a party to this whole process, and because we are a technology health technology company, and we are very much into innovation. So through our CSR projects, we try to create and build solutions for those situations, be it for human milk banking, be it for childhood pneumonia. We try to create those solutions and make sure that the government utilizes them in their own space. And this is all done with the government, in association with the government. With eventually scaling up is definitely in hands of the government more than with the corporate. So I think they are a very, very important part of our stakeholders, which is NGOs, governments, even our employees, our suppliers. So we won't say that we have a limited base of stakeholders. We try to keep each and everyone as a party to the projects that we work on. Obviously, different stakes and different responsibilities for each of them are devised for each project.
Wonderful. IICSR is a dedicated institution for research, development, training on sustainability and CSR, and building responsible business leaders. What kind of courses do you foresee us to roll out for existing professionals and the upcoming man force? And what is the scope of work and opportunity of CSR and sustainability professional, you being in this space since more than 2 decades? So what do you see young generation coming up and developing themselves as?
Well, I think it's a tricky question, but I would say that the first and foremost suggestion is don't create social workers. They're not social workers, they're professionals. They are social professionals. Look at creating and promoting community developers. Don't create social workers. I think we are past that mindset. Jhola chha, khadi ka kurta pehna aur chale gaye. I understand there's a level of emotion that needs to be there when you're working in the social development space, but that shouldn't override your practicality. Very important for us to do it. When you are actually looking at certain courses, trying to get more people inducted into the social setup, you should also look at that you train them on every sector. Don't just train them on social work. Train them on education, business related things, statistics, strategy. Train them on everything, because that is what is required. Your social work, obviously, you would have the right emotions. That's why you are in the social sector. But those right emotions need to be coupled with other things as well. So whatever courses that you develop, they should not be like typical NGO specific course or a course, CSR course. I think CSR is a very fancy term for me. I really don't like it too much when you say CSR, because it's become quite fancy. But if you really put it, actually see what goes into it, in India, it's become more professionally driven now that you have a law, and then you have people who are supporting it, and you have people who are working on it and delivering it. I think you should be able to make sure that in this whole process, you're able to create people who have an understanding of each and every sector of the business. Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to promote shared value, not only for the people on the ground for whom they are working, for the organization that they're working for. They have a responsibility towards both, not just last mile people. So if you are able to create that sense of understanding on what shared value is, I think they would be good to go in this profession.
On this note, may I request Dr. Upadhyay, Dr. Hopkins to ask their set of questions, please?
Yes. Can I ask?
Yes, of course.
Sakina, first of all, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah.
And the way you put things, that's very clear. Even at Philips, I understand you are into innovation, basically. You believe in innovation like in lightning and all what you have innovated. And I appreciate your views about CSR. But with the way the things are going now, we are going more in India into compliance, basically. And more of compliance. Compliance to the extent that we are telling now, even NGOs have to register under CSR1 and MCA will put a record. How do you like this relationship between this triangle, government, corporate, and the NGOs? Do you have some suggestions how we should go about it?
See, I think I think I'll put a little blame on the corporates also why this law has become more stringent. Because earlier the law was like, fine, if you don't spend it, then just give a reason. And corporates are like easy about it. Okay, well, I just have to give a reason. What is the point? It was never taken seriously by a lot of corporates. And I think even if the compliance is there, even if it was not there, it would have been there in the next few years. I would take it both positive and negative. I will take it positive in the sense that you need to understand there is a certain responsibility now that lies with the corporates to take it more seriously. To make sure that uh, they be compliant, yes, but also make sure they design programs now which are more effective rather than focusing on spending money. I understand now that the government has come up with the compliance that you have to spend your money, but you have to spend it right. So you don't have to be really in a rat race of saying that, okay, fine, I have to spend the money and give this charity, give that NGO, and then be done with it. I think the thought process now needs to be changed, which is also something which an NGO sector has to do. Because if they have to support the corporates. They have to support the corporates in making sure that the money, the advice on a proposal, on a project is right, and they have to ensure that the impact is what the corporate should be. They should not be giving random proposals to all things because they want the funding, or the corporate should not be giving random or accepting random proposals. They should connect it one, their core competency, what the corporate is doing. Every corporate is not in healthcare, every corporate is not in education. There are a lot of corporates who are in telecom and everything. What is it that they can do for that particular area? Can they build more jobs? Can they get in more skills into place? Can they enhance education system vis-a-vis the business that they're doing? It is just a way of being more creative in terms of how to have that. Again, I'll say that shared value within what you're doing. Using your own in-house skills and expertise and core competency to make sure that you are a part of the system and not seen just as a money giver. Similarly, NGOs have to be a little more professional in their ways of dealing. I understand because they too much engrossed. A lot of people expect NGOs to report and too many things in admin related. But eventually, if NGOs are able to ensure that the corporates also give them funding, or also their capacity builders, they also come back, okay, you give us the funds, but you also build our capacities from a technical point of view. And it will be a kind support from you. I think it will be a wonderful achievement that we can do. We at Philips do it. We get all our partners together on board, make them understand what each of us of them is doing for Philips. What is it that they're feeling, and they exchange ideas. They share ideas with each other. So I think it's very important for us to be very transparent and maybe also accountable at times in terms of what we are doing and how to connect with these people and make sure that we are there to build their capacities wherever they want, in
Sure.
whichever capacity, small, big, it doesn't matter.
Sure. Thank you.
Hi there.
Hi.
Hi, Sakina. Sorry I missed the first few minutes of your talk today. But the good news is, thank you, India. I've just taken the vaccination this morning of the AstraZeneca, and I'm still standing up, and I feel great. So, thank you, India. Okay, wonderful, and good to see my friend KK. And
Sure, sir.
as always, good to see Ramesh Daswani, who gave a wonderful talk at my seminar a few months ago, and always lovely to see the wonderful Harsha. She's always in Goa. I wonder. Hey, Ramesh, good to see your face, sir. Oh, and Smriti. Yeah, I haven't seen you for a bit. Good to see you.
I finally made it. Yes, finally made it to
Hey.
this one. Hello all. So nice to virtually connect. Looking forward.
Thank you. And now after that run around, you know I'm going to ask some tough questions. You love very much what you're doing, Sakina. I would just like to ask a couple of things. As you probably know, that I'm very, very keen on sustainable philanthropy. So the idea of giving a grant to an NGO which runs out eventually and then they're left high and dry. So with sustainable philanthropy, one of the key things that we've been pushing is the movement into sustainable enterprise or social enterprise. Have you come across that at all? Do you do anything on that? You start thinking about social enterprise in the projects you work with the NGOs? And if you don't, then I see Harsha, KK, Ramesh, and Smriti would all love to help you work in that direction. Because they've heard my song and dance on this issue for a bit, but it is serious because I think with the power of the big companies, they've got to move on to the next step and not be hamstrung by the law. I think, in fact, Tata has moved on, and so have Infosys. Of course, they're incredibly big companies and have done an awful lot of different things, but they're moving along those directions. So my question, Sakina, is what do you think about the NGOs that you work with, turning them into social enterprises? What have you got thoughts on that? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think it's the right time for us because we are working on something like that. We are working on looking at more sustainable solutions and working with through Philips Foundation. We work a lot with social entrepreneurs, not only in India but other countries as well. And we are looking at getting into the social enterprise mode with our partners in the primary health space. That is work in progress right now. But yes, that is definitely one thing because we do agree that we are not very much appreciative of the service delivery mode taking place through the CSR, but also looking at more sustainable solutions. In fact, all our projects have a component of building a sustainable solution, which will stay even if you're not there to fund it anymore. I think yes, that is it is there, and I'm open to more such suggestions from organizations who want to work with us on the healthcare space, especially in the primary healthcare space. It would be really nice to get to know other organizations as well.
I'd be happy to send you a paper that I wrote on this issue. I'm not asking you to follow every word in it, but it'll give you some of the ideas that we've been working on the last dozen or so years. So not sure how I can send you, but Harsha is very, very agile in getting things out. So I'll send it to Harsha and she can forward it to you. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much, Sakina. Sure. Thank you very much for coming along today on this, for me, a very auspicious day, having been vaccinated. I'm so happy. Gosh.
Congratulations.
Finally. Thank you very much. And all this nonsense about vaccinations and all the rest of it, blood clots and the rest of it. Come on, do me a favor. Hey, I'm running.
So we can see Dr. Hopkins.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have my camera on. I don't even know where my damn camera is. But
thanks Michael for this very for obviously you've touched a nerve about social entrepreneurship. If everybody would be on the group would be expecting that I'll jump in. Sakina, can I have a follow-up question on what Dr. Hopkins was saying?
Sure, sure.
Yeah, hi. I'm Smriti. Just wanted to get your reflections on, see, as CSRs, there is a difference, an immediate kind of a difference between, I mean, I see CSRs as getting the social impact stakeholders together, right? A company might be running 10 projects touching 10 different sustainability goals, or, like there is a bouquet of projects. Philips runs so many. Within healthcare also, there might be more. So I was just thinking how on the CSR leadership side, you see your role. When I say you, I mean the CSR leadership community sees their role in getting these stakeholders together. And if you allow me 2 minutes, I'll just elaborate on what I mean by this. Is very often these NGO, the activist kind of NGO people, they are mission driven. They are so focused on the product or the mission that they are leading, right? But then as a person or leadership looking from outside at the bigger picture, there are synergies that are available if these stakeholders could complement their work. I call them missed opportunities. I call this attitude a missed opportunities cognizant mindset. So basically, if an NGO is just focusing on education or mothers skilling, there have been models where early years care, because the mothers networks are created, and the early years care can be introduced in the same, leveraging the same platform. So was curious, how do you see CSRs as a force in actually making the stakeholders, the NGO sector, come together, complement each other work, and decipher the missed opportunities that exist when they come together?
I think it's a very good question, and I think this is being addressed at the moment also. If you see, before this law, well, CSR was working and NGOs were working their own way, there was a complete disconnect with the corporate sector and the NGOs. I think a lot of people in the corporate sector used to say that it's an eyewash if you are maybe working in a social space. But now a lot of things have changed, not only in India, but globally as well. If you see a corporate has a lot of influence when it comes to.
I don't know, you froze for me.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. So I think corporate sector do have a lot of influence. In fact, they should be the ones who should be involved in at least bringing the NGO sector together, at least the part of the sector that they're working with. It's not beating their own drum, but I think Philips did this, and we brought all our partners together, working on different issues altogether. Obviously, healthcare-related issues, whether it's education, healthcare skilling. We brought them together, put them on a platform. They shouldn't be looking at they're working in silos. They should be working on their own vertical. They should be able to exchange ideas. They should be able to understand, not only maybe learn from what Philips has to offer them beyond the funding, but they should also be learned from each other. What are the other partners doing? How are they? What is it that they are doing that they can pull into their projects? And how
the best practices?
Absolutely, I think that is what needs to be done. You cannot keep fine. This is there are 15 partners and they should be separately working. I don't care whether they're getting in touch with each other or not. I don't think that's going to work anymore, because every single issue that you think is interconnected. I'll just give you an example. If you're saying healthcare doesn't mean only providing services. It means healthcare is education, it is skilling, it is information, it is awareness. So how do you make sure that these are tied up together? How do you not treat them separately? So they have to be tied up together. And I think corporate does play they play a big role. There are corporates who have huge CSR funds, and I'm sure they have many partners that they work in. Where are the platforms for those partners to come and sit together, talk about the projects that they are supporting? In fact, it's a learning ground for the corporates as well to understand what is it that they are impacting. Is it some course of action course correction that needs to be done? Or is it everything going hunky-dory? Or what is the added value that this partner can bring into another project of mine? So this is where the corporates can play a big role, and I think we're moving into that direction. We cannot think that okay, fine, it's the money that we have to spend. Rest doesn't matter. And we have done this achievement in this project, this achievement in that project. I don't think anybody sees it in a consolidated view, and that is very important for us to have that consolidated view to make sure that we look at it holistically and see what is the value that each of our partners, small, big, huge, brings on the table.
Sure. Sure. No, thank you. Thank you for endorsing and kind of recognizing that, yes, there are these missed opportunities that exist when stakeholders work, because they don't have the bandwidth to reach out many often. So corporates could be a driving force to kind of get those collective experiences together, because I firmly believe, even one missed opportunity is one too many, which is the title of my book. So I've written the book, but then thank you for kind of endorsing the concept. But yes, I do believe, and I think post COVID, when we've all seen, I mean, in development sector, always the resource availability and the problem scale is always disproportionate, right? So with COVID, the resources have even been repositioned or whatever. So now I think there's more importance for people to think, like you very aptly put, across the development landscape, and see what as many SDG boxes, so to say, that can be ticked while they are working together. So thank you for taking the question. Yes, over to you, Harsha.
Today, an excellent question. May I request Mr. Ramesh Daswani to come forward and ask his question, which would be followed by Alok from Medha organization. Sir?
Thank you, Harsha. Am I audible? Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes, Ramesh.
Good afternoon, friends. I think it's a very nice, pleasant afternoon here in Bombay, and nice opportunity to meet Sakina virtually for the first time.
Yes.
We have spoken on the phone a couple of times, and today I'm glad to see you in person. I have two relatively small questions, but more direct. You've been in this space for a long time, and so have we. I wear two hats. I represent the NGO sector also, and I also do a part of work for the CSR sector as a CSR professional. My question to you, Sakina, is that where do you see the skilling gaps being bridged? How do you suggest we NGOs or we CSR consultants, in a sense, should help bridge the gap between the haves and the have-nots in terms of the skilling and employment sector? Okay, because the gaps are widening rather than shortening in spite of all the efforts we are all putting in. That's one question. That's a more general question. And the other question, which is a little more direct, that if someone were to align with Philips, what are the gaps which you think you are facing, and we could probably offer you a solution to make your life a little more simpler?
Okay. So direct questions or direct answers.
Yeah.
From a skilling point, let me take that question first. Skilling sector is a very tricky sector in India, though the government announced quite a bit on skilling part of it, that we need to skill India and all that. The problem is majority of us don't see the last result. What we see is get people, train them, and then leave them. That is what is the problem in India. We see a lot of skilling programs happening, amazing number of money being spent on skilling, or train this on this trade, this person. There's no hand holding. If we really look at, it's easier to mobilize people, get them to train, but it's very difficult for us to make them a part of the employment system.
Right.
You don't handhold them when they are in the part of the employment system. You just leave them. And it's very difficult for a person from a community who has got a particular skill to adjust into a very formal setup of an employment. So there is where I see a lot of gap. You have to be a part of that system till that person actually becomes a true part of that formal employment system. That is where we feel we don't follow up what happened to the guy. We don't look at the problems that they face. We don't look at the right fit in terms of the skilling. You may train them on skilling, but you really don't know. Majority of the organizations that I've seen, they don't do a counseling or they don't do a fact checking before they do the skilling. That whether that person is particularly suitable for that particular kind of a skill? Do we do that kind of mapping? I don't think majority of it has been done. I have seen a lot of instances when we were working in the skilling field that they say, okay, fine, we'll train 100 women. Who are these 100 women? What should be their background? What is their eligibility? What is the level of interest that they have? Just because they're telling them, I'll give you training, you'll earn 10,000 rupees a month, that doesn't solve it. That doesn't solve it. So I think a lot of gap is in the system itself, the start of the system itself. You want to skill them, but you are not bothered about the end result. You're not bothered about where they land up. And is it actually empowering them, or you're making them just a burden again on the society? So I think these gaps are one that we miss, and these are major ones. That's why the skilling system is not work. You may see a lot of government funding going into skilling, and these numbers being written out. Okay, we skilled 10,000 people, 120,000 people. What happened to those people? Where are they now? What is the economic development that has happened for them? How much have they contributed back into the society or the economics? And nobody has a view on that. So I think these are the gaps we need to, it's an end-to-end process. It cannot be like I need to train, I need to skill them, and that's it. That's my job. So we forget the last mile of the process. The second one, in terms of the gaps in Philips, see, to be very, I think, Ramesh, we have also spoken about it on phone. I'm not sure with you or somebody else. Philips has been, CSR is not new to Philips. CSR has been there with Philips as a part of the system by law, because it's a law in India. That's why you have a specific CSR person looking at it. From global level, we have an access to care division in the sustainability group itself, which is looking at providing access to care for communities in the underserved locations. Now that means that suppose it's a part of the purpose of the organization, and our mission is to reach out to 400 million people in the underserved communities every year by 2030. So it's a purpose statement of the business. It's not a CSR statement. So the company is very serious about it. And so the systems have been created within this Philips that we are all together working towards it, whether it is creating alternate business models for people in the underserved communities, or it's through CSR or through Philips Foundation that we work on. Everybody is trying to fill in and become a part of that purpose, and making sure that we reach and contribute towards the purpose of the organization. And that's a wonderful thing to happen, because the organization doesn't see CSR as anything different. It's a part of the system, and we are all pitching in towards fulfilling that vision of the organization.
Right. So as a follow-up to the first question about the skilling, we know you are not directly encouraging any skilling program, or do you?
No, we did skilling till last year, but we are not doing it now. We are working mostly on healthcare. We are giving scholarships for students from underserved communities on healthcare related higher education. Okay. So we are promoting that so that we have more HR support in the healthcare system, which is lacking right now, and making sure that we have the right people from those backgrounds coming in and joining the healthcare system.
Thank you. We'll keep in touch, Sakina. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Although we have two hands over here, Dr. Pawa and Dr. Hopkins. I
just Harsha wanted to just on the discussion that was happening to you, Ramesh, and to you, Sakina, just wanted to bring this into the discourse. I'm putting my researcher's hat now, was just saying the log frames, better outcome kind of indicator, performance matrices in the skilling segment. Like Sakina, you were saying, it's just the numbers and basically output, but then what is happening to the outcome? So how are you defining the log frames? Probably that some researcher hat needs to kind of go there. I don't know to what extent that is happening. And second reflection was what you said, and now I'm bringing my doctorate in nutrition into picture. Whenever we talk about cost effectiveness of any effort, I always maintain that cost effectiveness should entail the cost of just not delivery, but up. And this is again in the skilling sector, what people, but then there would be a cost to kind of groom them, to kind of ensure that they get placed, and or or entrepreneurial kind of track open for them, that the skilling is actually meaningful. Otherwise, you very rightly said, it could be frustrating to kind of be trained and have nothing to do, to kind of factor these costs in and then make a case for the points in case you want to reflect upon or kind of discuss further. That's all from me.
Yeah, yeah, I think I agree with you. I think that is for sure. You cannot be just not thinking holistically. There's a cost element attached to it, but then you have to give a clearer picture. You just can't say I'll train these many, nothing before, nothing after that. So I think corporates understand that. It's not that they don't understand it, but you have to be, from an implementing organizing perspective, you have to be transparent to what you are trying to convey and what you're trying to tell the corporate this is going to be achieved through this, and what impact it's going to have, not the numbers. Corporates are, I don't think corporates are interested in only numbers these days.
Sure, nobody is, no investor is. No investor is, but I think corporates can play a role, in kind of educating this entire process, in refining the log frames, in asking those tough questions, like you very rightly said. The impact could not be just coverage. It should be, so what the impact can be defined at in the log frame. The corporates can drive that conversation more and more.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. The capacity building. The corporates can help that capacity to be built in the NGOs.
Yes.
Corporates are not there only to fund. They have a lot more to give than just funding. So much of technical knowledge, support, skill. They NGOs or partners who are implementing projects for them can benefit so much from them. And it's a give and take process. So you ask them and you will see the skills and the technology pouring in.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Pava. We have inputs from Dr. Hopkins, and we have Alok from Medha Foundation also waiting for his question. Dr. Hopkins, you have a follow-up question, I think so.
Yeah, thank you very much. Similar to the question that we discussed last time, and also in our regular seminar series, do you remember when we interviewed people from Brazil and who had been looking at Walmart's activities in Brazil and compared them to how Walmart acted in the United States, where their headquarters was. And I wonder, with Philips, of course, whose headquarters I'm sure we're talking about the same company, headquarters in the Netherlands, I think. And I was just looking at their webpage, and it looks like that Philips is focusing activities on 3 key UN Sustainable Development Goals: health, well-being, sustainable consumption, and climate change. So I wonder whether you in India are following the headquarters lead in a wider examination of sustainability and CSR. It might be interesting for you too, as well, to have a look at the criticism of Walmart that came out of Brazil and Sao Paulo. Pretty interesting stuff. So my question is exactly that: is how much do you align with the company headquarters, which I assume is in the Netherlands? Am I right there, Sakina?
Yes.
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 How much?
Yes. We are headquartered in Netherlands, and we do follow all the purpose-led systems that the company has. It's not only India, all the markets that we have. In fact, very recently, we have again set up 5-year goals for our sustainability in 2025, and they're based on ESG framework. And every market has to follow those frameworks. Obviously, every market has their own challenges and their own issues. So, but every market follows what is driven at the global level, and so does India. So it's given.
Do you meet regularly with your colleagues around the world?
Well, in the last 1 year, we have been virtually meeting almost every day, because the sustainable development goal, the goals that we do for the next every 5 years is done in consultation with everyone. It's not something that they drive. So we have been part of those consultations as well. before the goals were finalized, looking at what was achieved in the last 5 years and what is it that we want to do ahead, whether it is related to the climate change, partnerships, sustainable development in broader sense, and also access to care. So every time we do revisit what we achieved and what is it that we want to achieve now. That's what I shared earlier. In terms of an access to care, we're looking at, we have those larger vision of reaching out to 400 million people a year by 2030. So that is something that each and every market has to contribute. It's not just to be done and driven by the corporate itself. It has to be, unless the markets actually promote it and work on it, it's not going to be achieved.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
May I request? Thank you so much, Dr. Hopkins. It's good to see you in person too. May I request Mr. Alok from Medha Foundation? You've been waiting for a while, sir. Please switch on also, if possible.
So actually, I'm in between something, so I can't switch on my camera. So thank you, Harsha, and thank you everyone for giving me this opportunity to ask. Actually, I have been working in this development sector for more than 4 years now. I work for partnerships and all. Still, I believe as an MBA graduate, I have been working or interned in corporates. I felt that development sector is very unorganized. I think two issues, they stick to one issue and they move after some time, some years. And how can we make it very mainstream? Because it has values. It has that a kind of agency kind of thing. They are raising issues to corporates, to the world, but still they are not very empowered in being mainstream and they don't be considered as mainstream. So how can we really work as an very focused organizations or a cohort of organizations? So that is one of the challenges even I am facing. I feel when I work as a development sector employee, my friends working in corporate sectors. So I felt a little bit difference while working in our organizations.
I think it's a very common question and that we have. In fact, for me, it's very easy to understand this question because I've been a part of the development sector for first 9 years of my professional life. And I think I understand development sector more than anybody who has been a part of the corporate throughout professional career. I think there is definitely a lot of effort needed in the development sector. There is a lot of trust issues also. That's why I've seen a lot of corporates in our um, uh, uh, circle that prefer working with organizations who are little top notch and who have presence in many areas, tending to ignore organizations who are doing actual work on ground, but maybe not so professionally driven. That's why I said, and I always keep trusting on it, that you should have a combination. Each corporate should have a combination of partners. They should be local partners, medium-sized, big-sized partners, so that there is an opportunity for them to connect with each other and learn from each other. Corporate should be building the capacity. That's very much for sure. But when you're looking at NGO, what they should be doing, they should be ready for those changes. I understand the essence of an NGO is their way of working on it, the passion and the zeal for a particular social topic. That should stay because that's what drives it. That's what drives a lot of change within our organization or the social system. But they should also be ready for critique. They should also be ready to take in and take feedback from their funders, from their colleagues, on how to develop themselves better, become a part of more professionally driven processes. I think it's very important for NGOs to also see that while the world is changing around them, they cannot remain unchanged or untouched. They have to move with the world. They have to move with the understanding. So tomorrow, yes, till yesterday, technology was not so great in part of your work, but now it is everything. So can an NGO today do without technology? No, they moved on with technology, adopted technology, and started working and embedding them in their system. It's exactly the same way. You have to change things. You have to be maybe more approachable in terms of what your partners can do for you, what the corporate can do, how can they build their capacities, and also be ready for taking the critique in a positive manner, working towards bringing in more professional systems into operations. That is what is required, because I understand the zeal and passion that the corporates work in. They say, no, it's too much of admin and all that. But I think it's equally important to understand that it is something that's going to add to the trust factor, um, between different entities, whether it's corporate NGO, government NGO, or any other entity working with them.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Sakina. Does anybody else have a comment or a question?
Yes, I think this is the second or third time I have been attending this meeting. I'm very happy that I got to know much more about development and corporate relations and how can we grow together. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Alok. I'd like to thank you, Sakina. Any final words for all of us?
I don't know. I think we are all part of the same system. It's maybe working in different scenarios. So I think a lot of us are learned and have had our own share of experiences. But I think the only thing that all of us maybe can keep in mind is that looking at impact rather than looking at any other thing, impact and that too sustainable. And I am sure all of us are working towards that. I think it's a learning for us also. It's not that I'm sitting here just trying to giving gyan and stuff, but it's something that I take back when the questions are asked and exchanges, comments are made. It's a learning experience for me as well. So I'm going to take back some learnings from here as well, and looking at it. Okay, fine. This is something that I may not be doing in my work system or normal professional life, but is it something that I can include? So I think it's a great opportunity to meet all of you, discuss what is happening on ground and what we are doing as an organization. Nice to be a part of it. Thank you.
A pleasure to have you. Dr. Hopkins, I believe you have again raised your hand. So is there a comment?
No, I don't think I did, but actually I'm just sending you the paper I mentioned in the chat session so you could get access to it.
Okay, sure.
Thank you everybody for joining in. It's a wonderful experience to meet all of you all virtually. Thank you, Mr. Daswani, Dr. Upadhyay, Dr. Pava, Mr. Alok, Dr. Hopkins, as always, and Sakina for sharing your time, experience, expertise with all of us and all our viewers.
My pleasure. Thank you.